just stay on mute. Cameras on or off, it's your choice. We're really here to learn and to talk to the fabulous team from Toyota Financial Services. So we will try to stick very much to our time and run through some kind of FAQ style, some key questions about the program and give you all a chance to ask questions. So as we get rolling, I'll say that this is very much something that we're doing with great pride and through some of our wonderful relationships through Startup Champions Network. Tom Chapman, Trey Bowles, other board members have really been helpful to us in opening this new relationship with Toyota Financial Services. And this is really what we're all about. We are champions for our local startups, and our role as ecosystem builders is to help locate startups all over the country that we may not find, that maybe not always are part of the big startup communities that we think of in places like Silicon Valley and New York and Boston and San Francisco. You know, we are all over the nation, and we know that innovation happens everywhere. So at Startup Champions Network, we're very excited for this partnership and our role in it. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. But what I'll say is that this session will be recorded so that if folks couldn't make it today, we know it's a summer Friday afternoon, it's a tough time, we will reshare that information. There's also a site which you can access through our private Facebook group, a website that has more information, and there's a detailed application there. But today we'll run through some questions. If you have questions that pop up in your mind as we go through, I'll ask you to please put them in the chat. And then we'll take questions at the end that are specific, but hopefully the things that we run through will answer some of the big ones. And so without further ado, I will say thank you to all the Startup Champions Network members who've helped make this happen. Stacy Miller and Sangeeta Gupta are two amazing women from the Innovation Strategies team at Toyota Financial Services. They've been working with us for months now to think about ways that startup champions like us can help connect companies like theirs with the latest in innovation, and in two sectors in particular, fintech and mobility. That is the way that we want to find ventures to help connect them to Toyota Financial Services and just explore the possibilities for making a deeper connection within the company and partnering. So we're excited for this. And I will say that if you know of other folks that you think are really deeply connected within the venture world and high growth startup world, please do share this information. If they're not Startup Champions members, that's okay, because we can talk to them about becoming a member. The one thing that we do sort of ask is that this is kept as a program promoted within and connected with people who are members of our network. And that does two things. One, it sort of gives us a chance to get to know people. As those of us who are longtime SCN members know, everything that we do is built on trust and relationship. So the more that we can get to know new folks and welcome them into the community, we're very happy to do that. And hopefully programs like this allow us to do that. And the other thing that provides a company like Toyota Financial Services is a little bit of assurance and trust that we're really getting to know people before we make connections with them. So this is connection and ecosystem building at its height because it's based on trust and collaboration. So I will get started and just ask Stacy, first of all, tell me a little bit why Toyota Financial Services is looking for partnership.
Yeah, number one, thank you for having us here. We're very excited to be a part of this, and we're very excited to partner with Startup Champions on this project. We at Toyota, obviously Toyota is known for innovation, but we also realize that diversity of thought is very important as we move forward. So we're looking to partner externally with startups and others that might bring new ideas to the table for us. We also want to venture a little bit outside of our comfort zone. And in order to do that and be a little on the edge, we're looking for those that have already kind of ventured down that path.
Terrific. And so thinking about our roles, either if you're on the phone and you represent a startup or a venture, or you are an ecosystem builder, sort of what's in it for us? How would this partnership benefit a startup directly, or as an ecosystem builder, how does it benefit somebody to make a referral?
Well, so from Toyota's perspective, we've in the past have had programs where we've worked with entrepreneurs and startups in a more of a mentoring fashion. So one, we think that there's an opportunity for us to bring to the table some answers or some mentorship and some connection building and networking for startups or ecosystem builders within our existing world. between Sangeeta and I and our entire team in strategic innovation, we have the ability to reach out to others within the organization and really pull and collaborate people together. And so that I believe that would be a benefit that a entrepreneur or startup would seek from a company like Toyota. Likewise, obviously, if we do a project with someone, there will be opportunities for the startups to earn compensation and things like that. So there's the opportunity for additional revenues for that startup as well.
Yeah, and I just think the experience of working with a company with leadership like yours at the level at which you're operating is so unique in the startup world. And from my experience, having run an accelerator, it's very exciting to be able to put that at the doorstep of startup companies. It's really a great match. So tell us a little bit then about the TFS's incubation program and the process that would go through. We sort of have a chart on our website about this where it lays it out in 4 easy steps, but maybe Stacey, you and I can run through what those steps might be.
Sure. So in the strategic innovation group, as we mentioned, incubation quite a bit. We are an incubator group. We look at new business opportunities from conception all the way through testing through MVP. And the target is to determine whether or not that is a business opportunity that we want to pursue commercially. So we'll find, our process will be, we'll work with a startup and we'll work with them and identify what it means to create an MVP. The startup will be asked to create an MVP for us. So that MVP will have potentially no customer data running through it. We're really trying to size and assess whether at that point and at that stage, whether it's feasible for us to move forward. Then the next stage would be, we would work with the startup to start building on that MVP to be able to accept, for example, customer transactions, if it's a transaction system, or even from a business process perspective, and continue to expand. And we would do that in a proof of concept type period of time, maybe 3 months or so, depending on the duration we agree with the startup, so that we can achieve our goals. And then from there, we're gathering, data, our assumptions on the financials working, our assumptions on usership working. Is the market, is there more to learn about that market? Once we have all those data inputs, we can then decide go, no go, whether we want to recommend it for commercialization.
Phenomenal. And so the timing of that process, how SCN gets involved, is we are simply hosting the application and assisting with the matching process. So thinking of us a little bit as matchmakers, and that we anticipate that time frame will take about a month. And so, applications are of course considered on a rolling basis. So we wouldn't necessarily wait a month to reach out to you if you submit an application or recommend someone and it seems like a great fit. We would move it along quicker than that. But in general, assuming that it takes about a month to find the different cohort and the number of companies that we hope to work with, then that selection process, the beginning of introductions and vetting would happen roughly through about September, October. And then sometime through October and January of early next year, the ventures would begin the development of that MVP process that Stacey just mentioned. And then finally at the end, there'd be some evaluation whether or not there'd be a master service agreement. So that's kind of the rough flow. It would take us into early 2021 for this kind of first round of this partnership. So that kind of covers the timing and how it works, but and what happens after your application is submitted is that probably you'll hear from one of us, probably me, if we want to ask more questions and clarify, although as you'll see when you get into the application, there are 43 questions, so it's fairly detailed. We obviously aren't sharing that information about the companies outside of this small team here. We're just trying to get as much data up front about the ventures so that we can help in our matchmaking process be as useful as possible. So if you need clarification on a question, if you want to know more about it, you simply can email me, and it's Kristin, Kristin. I can put it in the chat later at startupchampions.co. And so tell me, Stacey, so if once they're sort of in the incubation process, this is still proprietary information. So, can a startup share, for instance, that they'd be working with Toyota Financial Services?
Right. That's a great question. And it's really a case-by-case basis. We don't know what the idea will be. We don't know how confidential the information will be. So we just ask that we will work with the startup and we'll provide permission of what could be disclosed about their relationship and the partnership.
Great. And let's see. So we've talked a little bit about what happens after the application, the fact that it's a very, informal process and that you can just reach out and email me. And what happens though if a startup isn't selected this time around? So if it's been about a month and you haven't heard from us, what happens after that? Is there another chance to reapply if they're not a fit this time around?
Yeah, absolutely. Number one, we would hope we would get back to you in timely. We don't want to leave any startups kind of lingering and wondering, what happened with their application. If anything, what we would like to do also is afford the startup the opportunity to understand why their application maybe was not selected. And it could be that, the idea it was a great idea and we're interested, but the timing just wasn't right. And maybe we can provide the startup with some idea around timing as well. And we hopefully there'll be a second round and a third round and a fourth round, and we're hoping that it would be more frequent. Right now is our first project with Startup Champions. The way we see it is we'd love it to be just a life cycle of new ideas coming to the table and us working with startups. And you just don't know too, the relationship with the startup, depending on the conversations, could change. It could end up being maybe it's not an MVP opportunity, but maybe it's a mentoring opportunity. Maybe it wasn't a good fit for what we need for our business, but we established the relationship. We have several other programs at Toyota in which we want to support local businesses and diversity businesses as well. So there's probably a lot of opportunities at the table that we can maybe customize and fit for a startup, depending on what they bring.
Great. And I'll mention a few key things within the application criteria that are important to consider. And again, there's a little summary deck that's available on the website. I'll put the link through in chat just one more time in case you haven't seen it. But ideally, these are US-based companies. And if I get any of these wrong, Stacy, or forget them, you can fill in and correct. So US-based companies. Again, love to see certified diversity supplier companies or just diversity in general amongst the applications. We've mentioned the two sectors of fintech and mobility, and the definition is deliberately pretty broad within that. We don't want to get too specific within the sector of what types of ventures, because that might suppress something great that we would have wanted to have heard about. Definitely, if there are any issues going on within the company around, risk or liability, these are things we would ask to disclose right away. I think beyond idea on a napkin stage too, like we want to see some traction within the company. And so we've asked some questions about runway, about where the company might be in terms of its funding process. And definitely wanting to understand the experience of the team is very helpful to us. So, sort of the classic startup questions, why this team? Why are you the ones to solve the problem you're solving? Showing the sort of traction that you've received so far, and any kind of exciting things about the company should really shine through in the application. So if you go through the process and feel that you're just missing from the questions we're asking something key you want to tell us, there is a chance to upload a link to a deck or a presentation short, of course, that you can do on YouTube. And of course, you can always have a supplemental material emailed directly to me if you feel that it's truly helpful. But we're just trying to get that sense of the company, making sure there are no major risks or red flags to watch out for, making sure it's US based, and in the categories that we're looking for. So did I miss anything, Stacy?
I think you got everything pretty well. Yeah.
Great. And again, the final thing is, again, a tie to an SCN member. So if you're brand new to this community and you consider yourself an ecosystem builder or a startup champion, we welcome you. We're really excited right now at the stage SCN is at. We have started a new ecosystem building learning academy. It's virtual. David, in fact, a couple of other members here have been participating in our first courses. So for us as an organization, we're at a time of great hope and expansion, and these kinds of partnerships really represent that. We know these are unique times for innovation in America, for entrepreneurship, and there's a lot that we can do in our various communities to lift up and support those who are building the next economy through innovation and through inclusivity. So I think that kind of answers it. And what I would love to now do is, if you have questions, please do put them in chat. I see one there already that I will take a moment to read, and Stacy or Sangeeta or I can answer. But if you have additional questions, pop them in chat, and then we can sort of call those out and try to answer them directly. So one question from Jennifer is coming in. Do you have a capacity limit in terms of how many companies you can accept?
So is that for Toyota to accept or for you to evaluate?
For no limit for us to evaluate. And so our goal though would be to give at least 8 to 10 really solid companies to the TFS team within the next month or so.
That's right.
But there's no limit. If we find more than that, that's a beautiful problem.
Yes, exactly. And for us, just from the startup MVPs, obviously if a MVP is easy to implement, then we can get them through the cycle faster. Just a little bit more background on our team. We are a small incubator team as well. So we're somewhat of a startup within a larger organization. And we have several projects in the pipeline right now, and we're building our pipeline. And so one of the things that we would do is try to evaluate of the startups that come across and the ideas that come across, how do we now schedule them within the pipeline, where you may or may not need a lot of support from us. Again, it just depends on the idea. If there's an easy way to implement, you don't need a lot of support from us, maybe oversight, that kind of thing, then that's something that we might be able to get done sooner than later. But if there's something that requires, let's say it's a lot of compliance issues that we need to work through, that might take a little longer. And so we might need to limit how many simultaneous projects we have with it at the same time.
Okay. And then another question that's coming in from David. The eligibility requirement states beyond seed stage. So are the startups requiring to have a certain level or stage of funding, or is it just like I was saying, not yet the idea on the napkin?
Yeah, I think, and we also recognize that some startups aren't going through that venture cycle, right? And they might be private funded or something like that. I think what we just want to make sure, again, for both the startup and for Toyota, that as we go into this relationship and potential growth of the relationship, that it's sustainable. And that the startup would be able to commit in the longer term with Toyota if that was a decision that needed to be made. If it's too early stage and the startup is not stable enough on their own, that might be something that Toyota would have to take a look at from a risk perspective. Yeah.
Let's see, keep just reminding folks to pop questions into chat. And I'll bring up a question that we've discussed a few times about just the time commitment. So let's assume that things go well and the venture is sort of sailing through the process and you're in that initial evaluation phase. We talked a little bit about making sure that the key team members could be available to work with the TFS team and having a certain amount of time, meetings per week, that sort of thing. So Stacey, can you just give us a little bit of an idea about that as well?
Yeah. I mean, we are an agile shop. We'd like to work closely and understand the progress that's being made. We'd also want to make sure we're available to the startup to answer any questions and to remove any roadblocks to keep us moving forward. Again, because we're incubating, we're trying to keep things moving at a faster pace. So we feel like if we have access to the right resources at the startup to move things along, that would be ideal for us. And it could be whatever those important roles are within the organization, within that project is who we're talking about.
Okay. So let's see, we've covered a bit about capacity, timing, process, stage of the startup. Does anybody else from the group have additional questions? Or, if we don't have questions, we can spend the last 5 or 10 minutes kind of opening it up to just, you can tell us in a brief word, popcorn style, who you are, how you're coming to the call. And, if there's anything specific that we can address to your questions, let us know. But let's see, I'll wait one more second to see if anything else pops into chat. So yeah, if you're comfortable, you can just, turn your camera on or turn your voice on, unmute, and just tell us very briefly who you are, where you're calling from, and whether you're an ecosystem builder or a startup or both. That might be interesting for us to know who's joining us on the call. I know some of you, but not everybody. And you don't have to participate if you're, here for another reason. Feel free to stay off mic or just pop something into chat.
Hey, I'm Adam Beck. I work with Fingol. We are a startup that helps find people money in their existing spending. And our whole goal is to solve the $400 problem that 40% of Americans can't afford a surprise $400 expense. Our CEO, David, came across this and forwarded them to me for the info session, so that's why I'm joining.
Great. All right, anybody else want to chime in real quick or have a question? You can certainly put it in chat.
Hi, my name is Mariam Siyum, and I'm also from Fingol. everything that Adam said, ditto. I'd just like to introduce myself as well.
Thanks, Ariam. We've got a couple ecosystem builders on here. How about David or Carol? You want to chime in from where you're from?
Sure. So David Sminsky, Chief Relationship Officer for a nonprofit in Cedar Rapids, Iowa called the New Bohemian Innovation Collaborative. Interested in all the stuff that SCN is doing, but also Toyota Financial Services is a pretty major employer here in Cedar Rapids. So really looking at understanding ways that we can bring this to our community. I also ran our nonprofit has an accelerator, the Iowa Startup Accelerator. So we invest in early stage companies. So the stuff that you're looking for, there's companies that we've invested in, people that we've built relationships with that I think will want to know about this. So interested in gathering this information for our team and figuring out how best to participate. So appreciate you guys putting this together. Really exciting opportunity, and leveraging these corporate relationships with startups is something that we're really passionate about, and I know SCN is too. So thank you.
Well, thank you, David, and I appreciate that you're from Cedar Rapids. I've ventured down there quite a bit myself in my tenure with TFS, and maybe that's a good thing for me to note, Kristen, is the fact that throughout the United States, nationwide, we have a presence throughout the United States. And one of the things that we want to do, whether it's mobility or whether it's supporting the communities, is really support those communities in which we are present as well. So David, in Cedar Rapids, you're right, we have a presence there. We would love to continue to explore in Cedar Rapids, or whether it's near one of our manufacturing plants. Again, we're striving to help those communities as well. So if you ecosystem builders have startups that are working in those areas, we'd love to consider that as well. Thanks.
Great. All right, does anyone else have a final question in our last few minutes, or want to just chime in and say hi from wherever you're coming to us from?
Hi, I'm Carol. I'm from west of Chicago in DeKalb, Illinois. Sorry I came in late. I'm eager to listen to the recording, but I already have a dozen possible connections to startups in fintech and mobility just from last night by putting the word out through my networks. So I'm eager to learn more about this. I am founder of a group of 20 state incubator association presidents. So we have access to 50,000 startups between the 20 of us in terms of a network where we, of course, run the incubator associations that serve the incubator managers that then have the tenants who are the startups. So I don't know that I'm technically an incubator or an ecosystem builder, but I'm certainly an access point to a large national ecosystem, including California, Florida, New York, Texas, Illinois, the big states, in terms of startup present stuff. So I'm eager to find out more when I listen to the recording and may have more questions, but I got caught in a traffic jam out on the road. It was my first day out since March to a doctor's appointment and a traffic jam on the way back. So sorry, my apologies.
Bad news is COVID didn't stop traffic, Carol. It stopped a lot of other things, but not the traffic. So
Carol, thank you for that comment. And maybe I should also say that, this is not a one-way street. I know you asked the question of what the startups or the ecosystems will get out of this. For Toyota and our team, I think what we want to look to also is to learn from the startups and also from all of you ecosystem builders as well, right? Carol, you mentioned that you have extensive experience and a lot of connections with other incubators. We're not, here at Toyota, we don't do things perfectly. We're always wanting to learn. That's part of our Toyota way, is continuous improvement and respect for people. So absolutely, we're looking to learn from all of you as well, and how we can do better as an incubator and how we can work better with startups. So thank you for your comments.
Great, thank you.
Great. I'll scan chat for one last round of questions if anyone has specific questions. I would encourage you, the application is officially live and open today. So if you have questions, like I said, I will actually go ahead and pop my email into chat. If you need any help with the application, let me put that in there right now, startup champions.co. Yeah, you can email me directly. We will put the recording and any information about this. We're trying to actively share it on our Facebook member site. And as I said, if you don't know an SCN member, but you know someone who's a startup champion, or if you are a startup champion, somebody like a David or a Carol, and you're interested in learning more about the organization, you can also email me about that as well. We make our memberships very accessible, and the main benefits are that you find a community nationally of others who are looking to advance startups and need best practices, resources, and frankly, some very nice people and friends. That's a big part of what we offer, is just nice relationships, and we've very happy to welcome Stacy Sangeeta and her team into this family of trusted friends and advisors around the country. So we are grateful for that. That's how we do our ecosystem building work, is by going deep and getting to know folks. And so for all the startups on the call, I salute you. I spent many years working to develop startups, and it's an exciting, wonderful way to put your energy out in the world. So we're grateful to help you and glad to be getting to know you. And I can't wait to read your applications.
Us too. We're looking forward to it too.
All right, well, we will sign off with no further ado, give you 3 minutes back to breathe in your life, now too, before your next Zoom call or maybe a little bit of lunch. And like I said, with any questions, just email directly. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you.